Everybody is at least a little worried about Paolo Banchero and his scoring, but guess what? Just like in the preseason, calm down. Just because Paolo isn't scoring like a superstar doesn't mean he's not playing like a superstar. I'll explain why, plus why the road is a big, big task for the Orlando Magic and what to watch versus the Blazers tonight as we dive into Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is, well, it's October 26th as I'm recording this. It'll be October 27th soon enough. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, Paolo Banchero continues not to put up the kind of scoring numbers that we're used to from him, including a career low in field goal attempts. Why that doesn't mean he is not the star we think he is. In fact, why he's exactly the star we think he is. We'll dive into that. Plus, the Orlando Magic head out on the road where they really struggled last year. We'll chat about what the Magic have to do on this road trip and talk about tonight's game against the Portland Trail Blazers. Look at all that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for. Be sure to check out Mike Richmond, who we chatted with earlier in the offseason of Locked On Blazers, to get yourself ready for tonight's game. The Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Dave. Download Dave today at dave.com/LockedOnNBA. You could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit checks, no late fees. Check it out today. First, the big news, the most important news of the day. Breaking news. Hit the CNN music. I don't know what we do here. Jonathan Isaac got his block. They did not give Jonathan Isaac a block on the Jalen Green dunk at the end of the third quarter. As I noted online, that was not a block. That was deletion. But the NBA, in its good graces, has credited Jonathan Isaac with a block, and so we can all breathe easy, go home happy. We're putting that win, a 116-86 win over the Houston Rockets, behind us. As Cole Anthony said after the game, you got 30 to 40 minutes to enjoy that thing, and then it's on to the next one, and we are already on and thinking about this upcoming road trip, the first West Coast road trip of the season. Couple late nights coming here for us here at Locked On Magic. We will talk all about that road trip coming up here in a minute. But there's still one thing that kind of lingering coming out of the game against the Rockets. One thing lingering that is worth at least stewing upon, at least thinking about, at least considering. And rehashing among some people. Statistically, at least, this has not been a good season for Paolo Banchero. Preseason, regular season, whatever you want to call it. Paolo, there's a lot placed on Paolo. I've had a couple fans say, why are you so excited about Paolo Banchero? Franz Wagner's just as good. Talk about the rest of the team. And yes, you're all right. But let's be honest, this is a star league. We're watching Damian Lillard tear up the first half with the Milwaukee Bucks and seeing what just a little bit of star power can, what just a little bit more star power can do to even an already strong star team. Paolo Banchero is just this type of player that the Magic have not had. And obviously we were super excited about what he did last year and even more excited about what he can do this year. Essentially, what everyone wants to see is Paolo double down on what made him so successful. But I will always point out, and I will always say that, it's just let's point out two things. First, it's just one game. I'm not freaking out about anything Paolo did. In fact, I'm going to explain why it's not an issue at all. And B, progress is not a straight line. That Paolo will probably take some steps back to figure some things out and then take some steps forward. But what I don't, and I think generally Magic fans haven't been on this, but I just want to just kind of drive this point home. Paolo did not have a bad game against the Rockets. He did not play poorly in the win over Houston. In fact, he did exactly what you want a star to do. I think I brought this point out when I talked about him during the box score review, but to me, Paolo Banchero really took some I don't want to say impressive steps because we're, one game. Let's see what patterns emerge, all that. Paolo did some really good things. And to me, we talked about maturity a lot, showed a lot of maturity in understanding the sacrifice that he needs to make his teammates better, to do what his teammates need him to do. If there was a criticism of Paolo Banchero last year, and he was a rookie, so I think some criticisms are fair, I think some criticisms are not. If there was a hole in his Rookie of the Year candidacy, it was that he was inefficient. And a lot of us here would say, well, of course he's inefficient. He's a rookie with a 30% usage rate. He wasn't 30%, it was like 28, 29%, but he's a high usage rookie. Every high usage rookie is terribly inefficient because they don't know the shots they're supposed to take. Those guys are given a green light, say, hey, go out there, do your best, make some mistakes. And Magic wanted him to make mistakes. That, we talked about it here, how the Magic probably lost games because they put the ball in Paolo's hands. I think Josh Lloyd of Locked On Fantasy Basketball says this a lot. Rookies are always bad. Rookies are bad. They're terrible fantasy bets. And this is exactly why. And so what we were all obsessed with Paolo was, how does he become more efficient? How does he take that next step? How does he do what Jason Tatum did or what Kevin Durant did in their second years? Two guys that he worked out with, by the way. I would note that Paolo shot better from three in his rookie year than Kevin Durant did in his rookie year. A rookie season is, it points you in the right direction, but it is not the final statement. And we, of course, expect Paolo to get better. So having said all that, Paolo was 3 for 6. And he struggled to shoot a little bit in the game, in the preseason. He wasn't kind of his super aggressive self. And we talked to him about it after the Pelicans game in Orlando. And his response was, I'm not worried. Are you? And that's the correct response to have. No one was worried about him at all. He was waiting for his opportunity, waiting to up the aggression a little bit. And perhaps he could still up that aggression a little bit, but I'll get to that in a minute. Paolo Banchero had an incredibly effective game, 12 points on 3 for 6 shooting. So 50% shooting, it's pretty good. But everyone's obviously, if there is a frustration, I think people are a little frustrated or a little concerned that, okay, Paolo only took 6 shots, ties a career low. He took 6 shots, he took only 6 shots in just one game last year, and that was the foul trouble-ridden game that he had against the Los Angeles Lakers, a game that I think even he admitted he was nervous going up against LeBron James. Just a game where he was completely out of sorts, and he would say he was out of sorts. This was not that game. This was not a game where foul trouble took Paolo completely out of the flow. This was not a game where he made these mistakes or he took himself out of the game. This was a game where Paolo Banchero was deeply involved. Because yes, he was 3 for 6, but he had 5 assists. He had 3 defenders closing in on him every time he drove to the basket. He still got to the line for 7 free throws. So he still got a healthy free throw diet, which, we're expecting an average 7-8 free throws per game. This was a game where maybe Paolo wasn't getting all the way downhill to the basket. He missed a shot early that I thought was a little bit of a wild finish. That was a problem in the preseason as well. But after that, he understood why he's a star. Stars are stars, of course, for their production. And yes, at some point, the Magic are going to need 20 point per game Paolo Banchero. They're going to need that guy. They didn't need it in this game. And in fact, I would be willing to bet he was like moving in that direction until the Magic blew the game open and they didn't need him. Because Paolo Banchero hit the pull-up jumper that made a 1-point game a 3-point game and kind of eased the pressure off the Magic a little bit. That was a star play. but so was everything else he did. Stars are stars because of their production. They're also stars because of the attention they receive. Houston put their best defender on Paolo Banchero and Dylan Brooks. Houston, every time Paolo got moving toward the basket, two players came over to surround him, to try and trap him, to try and force him into mistakes. And Paolo didn't make mistakes. I'm looking at the box score here. Paolo had 1 turnover and 5 assists. All 5 of those assists were, a lot of those 5 assists, I won't say all 5, but a lot of those assists were passing out of double teams, absorbing pressure, taking the heat from the defense and kicking it back out to a shooter. Kicking or finding Cole Anthony trailing on a cut because Paolo sucked the defense away and opened up the space for Cole to cut. Paolo Banchero did not score very much in that game Wednesday night against Houston. That doesn't mean he didn't make an impact. That doesn't mean that he didn't play as the star. And I want everyone to remember that. Now, look, Paolo's going to have to up the scoring. There's got to be a game when the Magic are going to need it. There was a moment in Wednesday's game when the Magic needed it, and guess where the Magic turned? They turned to Paolo. So one game is obviously not a reason to panic. A preseason is certainly not a reason to panic with a player as talented as he is. Paolo Banchero is still this team's star, and he played like it, even if the numbers don't scream that he did. The Orlando Magic got to enjoy their one game at the Amway Center, but now it's time to go on the road. The Magic struggled a lot last year. What the Magic have to do to reverse their road woes, we'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends, our new friends over at Dave. Look, at one time or another, we all need a little financial help. We all need just a little bump. There's an emergency. There's something going on that says, hey, we were all in college. There's always a moment. Every one of us probably had a moment in school, first time on our own, where we called our parents and said, hey, I need a few extra bucks for this. And that's why Dave is great. Dave can get you cash when you need a hand between paychecks. It can help you build credit by settling extra cash advances on time. Dave is the banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. When you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less with no credit check and no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. Extra cash gives you more money to buy groceries, fill your gas tank, finally get your car repaired, or catch up on bills without having to wait for your next paycheck. You can even build credit when you settle up on time. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to make their finances easier. So if you're in a pinch, get the help you need by downloading Dave. Download Dave today at dave.com/LockedOnNBA. That's dave.com/LockedOnNBA. You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/LockedOnNBA. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. Today's podcast also brought to you by our friends over at Jase Medical. We are still in hurricane season, of course. Still got a couple more months where we got to worry about the Atlantic. We're getting way up there in the names. I think we're at T. I think we're at Tammy already. Hurricane season seems busier than ever. And while we've been fortunate this year where we haven't really been hit by hurricanes here in Central Florida, you always have to be prepared. So if you need to be prepared with the medication that you need in case of an emergency, Jase Case is the one for you. They're personalized emergency medication kits that contain 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jase Medical now offers customizability for your Jase Case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medication that best fits you and your family's unique needs. You can also buy a gift card for family or your loved one so that they can get a Jase Case of their own. Go to jasemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at Jase, Jase medical.com. We've been preparing for this since the schedule came out in August. Please stay up with us. I'm going to be watching the games. I'm actually going to be live kind of manning casting the game over at PSF. You can check out the PSF app to join the show there. I'll try and send some links out as well. But we all knew this was coming. We all knew this was there. I thought that the Magic's game against the Rockets was as close to a must-win as it could be because the Orlando Magic have departed. They're in Portland for the first of a 4-game West Coast road trip. The Magic will play at Portland, at the Lakers on Monday, at the Clippers on Tuesday for Halloween, and then close out their trip at Utah in Salt Lake City against the Utah Jazz before they come home to play the Los Angeles Lakers 1 week from Saturday. So kind of a quick trip, but the West Coast trips are always hard. We're not going to pretend that they're not. So, Utah may not be the strongest team in the world, and they struggled a little bit against the Sacramento Kings in their opener. But Salt Lake City is always a very difficult place to play. I know Orlando won in Portland last year at the Moda Center. Portland is always a very difficult place to play. And frankly, the Magic were not a good road team last year. They're just still getting around it. Orlando was 20-21 at the Amway Center, which means they were 14 I'm trying to do math because I don't have 14-27 away from the Amway Center. Such a key part of this season is maturity. And I would argue having a really strong home record is essential. Winning that first home game was essential for this Orlando Magic team. It was critical to their success and to what this team is ultimately hoping to build. Going out on the road now, though, the Magic are going to have to find themselves again. And this is where you think identity is going to be found. They always say defense travels. So if you're a good defensive team, you'll be able to defend well on the road. But that just wasn't the case last year. Last year, the road was a struggle. It was not just the 14-27 record. Statistically, the Magic were really bad. They had a minus 4.8 net rating. Their defense did travel. 113.1 points per 100 possessions. Team's overall season average was 113.7. And of course, they were 113 after December 7th. But the team's offense went in the tank. 3 points per 100 possessions worse than they were for the season overall. They had a 108.2 offensive rating on the road. Again, it's always harder, especially for younger teams, to play on the road. The Magic did have a lot of home games during that 5-20 start. So, there are numbers to think about here. But this is where you figure out your team's mettle. And look, this feels like a manageable road trip. I think when you go on these long road trips, 500, if the Magic go 2-2 and come home 3-2, that's going to be considered a little bit of a victory. That's going to be considered a solid showing. If the Magic somehow go 3-1, which, yeah, they had a road trip last year where they probably should have won all 4 games or should have gone 3-1. The Lakers, there's a big Lakers loss, there's a big Suns loss that were really close games. This is where your team's mettle is going to be determined. And we hope that Orlando's continuity, that their energy, that their defense is going to be something that keeps them in a lot of these road games. But of course, we're 1 game into the season. We don't know. We don't know the answer to any of these questions. I'm looking at last year's stats because that is a reference, but who knows what's going to last, what's going to make sense, what's going to be the thing that carries over, that carries this team forward. That's the question. I don't know the answer to any of these questions. I don't know what this team's going to be, but this is what the Magic have to do. They have to find their offensive flow. They have to make some shots early. They have to be the aggressors. They were the aggressors against Houston. They were physical. They got after them. They got deflections. They got to bring that energy, and everyone acknowledged the crowd gave them a lot of energy. They got to bring that energy. They got to find that energy for themselves to carry the day and win these games, and at least put them in a position to win these games, because it's not easy to play on the road. That's the truth of it. It's not easy. And this road trip is not going to be easy. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be a struggle. Every game is going to feel big. They should feel big. And so the Magic have to really approach these games with a lot of focus and with a lot of the attention to detail and maturity that they've been talking about all season long, all preseason long, all training camp long. Orlando has to reverse these road woes. And look, these are teams the Magic can beat. The Magic got swept by the Lakers last year, but they should have won the game in Los Angeles. Or, they were up late in the game against Los Angeles. They should have come away with an LA sweep last year. It was in March, I believe. That game was in January. They swept the Clippers. They snapped their losing streak with a come from behind overtime victory over the Clippers at home. They beat the Clippers in Los Angeles with Franz Wagner hitting a pair of really big shots and Markelle Fultz tearing things up. They lost. They got swept by Utah. They split with Portland. I believe they split with Portland. They won at Portland in a really crazy game. Obviously, it's a different Portland team. These are games the Magic can win, and the Magic should feel, and we're early enough in the season, the Magic should feel they can win all 4 of these games. They're probably not going to. We're gonna find our first loss here. We're gonna find our first loss here, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world yet. But this is going to be a big gut check for this young Orlando Magic team to see just how good and how serious they are this early. We don't want to race too far ahead. It starts with tonight's game against the Portland Trail Blazers. We'll go over keys to that game coming up here in just a moment. But first, a quick word for our friends over at PrizePicks. Boy, did I not do good in PrizePicks? I took more for Paolo Banchero, more for Franz Wagner. But guess what? The best part about PrizePicks is there's another game and another chance to get up on the table and try again. And PrizePicks is probably not being super respectful for the Magic, even though I got the more on Franz. I didn't get the more on Markelle. I didn't get the more on Paolo. And so, of course, we're going to take a look at the board. We're going to take a look at what our PrizePicks offers are for the Orlando Magic against the Portland Trail Blazers. Of course, PrizePicks is a simple game. It's the most fun you're ever going to have playing daily fantasy sports. You can win up to 25 times your money with every entry. All you have to do is pick more or less than the projected stats and place your entry. If you believe, and I'm going to pull it up here in a second if I can find it. I don't think they posted our PrizePicks for Friday's game yet. But if you believe Paolo Banchero is going to score more than 21.5 points, which was his number for Wednesday's game against the Houston Rockets, if you believe Paolo Banchero will get more than 21.5 points, you just simply say he's going to get more than 21.5 points. It's that easy. They offer quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stats from points, rebounds, and assists. So many stats to help you find the pick that works for you. You're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to have a really good chance to make some money. And with the PrizePicks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For NFL games and college football top 25 matchups, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for your first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, that's 2 N's, and use code LockedOnNBA for first deposit match up to $100. The Orlando Magic get to play the Portland Trail Blazers in their opening night game. Portland coming off, it was a 12-point loss to the LA Clippers, but the Clippers wrecked them. They were up by 30 at one point. The fourth quarter of the game was academic. It was not too dissimilar. It was not the same as the Magic's game because it was never close. LA just dominated them completely, but not too dissimilar in that the Clippers won comfortably, the Magic won comfortably. So Portland's going to be hungry for a win. They're going to be in front of a home crowd, new team for them, new era for them. There's going to be a lot of emotion and excitement in the building, just like there is every open night. It is hard to win on opening night. It is hard to come into another team's building, first game of the season, first home game of the season, and get a win. This is going to be a really, really big challenge. Let's pull up some keys to the game for the Magic versus the Blazers. I'm going to start with turnovers and transition baskets. Turnovers were a really big piece of the puzzle for the Orlando Magic throughout training camp. It's something they're still hammering. Had 16 turnovers for 14 points against Houston. That's pretty good. Orlando first forced a ton of turnovers, 19 turnovers for 23 points. Orlando's going to need to do the same thing here. The Clippers really victimized Portland off turnovers. They got turnovers. They got out in transition. Orlando in their game against Houston had only 5 fast break points. Orlando is going to need to bump that number up. They're 2 for 6 on fast break opportunities. They're going to need to bump that number up if they want to blow out the Blazers, which I think they can. I think that is absolutely something that this team can. And you don't want to say you're aiming for it, but if the Magic are going to blow them out, it's because they're getting out in transition. So I think that is a big factor. That was something the Magic really struggled with. Portland's going to look to run too. Scoot Henderson wants to run. He wants easy baskets. They got Anthony Simons. They got some guys that can fly down the court. And then you got DeAndre Ayton pulling it up the rear. And look, DeAndre Ayton got into foul trouble, did not play very well, did not play a ton of meaningful minutes against the Clippers. They're going to look to establish him early too. So Wendell Carter's going to have to be on his game. Ayton's still a handful down on the block, and Portland's got some guys who can score. That gets us to our second point, which is watch the three-point line. Houston was able to climb back in the game against the Magic on Wednesday by hitting some threes. They had 5 threes in the first 5 minutes of the third quarter. That cut the lead from 12 down to 1. Orlando, it wasn't that Orlando wasn't scoring, it was that they were giving up threes. It was 3 for 2. And Houston was able to cut into that lead and make it a game, make it a 1-point game at one point. The Magic built their lead in the first half with 3-pointers. Whoever's going to win the 3-point line could very well win the game. And final key to this game, just like I mentioned, the Magic do need to get Paolo Banchero going. There's no doubt about that in my mind. They do need to get Paolo established. They need to get him into a good scoring rhythm. This stuff is important. This stuff does matter. Yes, Orlando got what they needed to score and scored plenty. They got to make sure their key players are scoring. Again, it's what's consistency, what's sustainable. This Magic bench is going to be good. Like Orlando, Portland has a lot of their shooters coming off the bench, so I don't think the Magic will have as much of a bench advantage in this game as they did against Houston. Portland's got Robert Williams. They got Malcolm Brogdon coming off the bench right now. They got some shooters off the bench that could give the Magic some problems. Certainly, not the level of Fred VanVleet perhaps quite yet, but this is a team that has some veterans still mixed in. They're going to play hard. They're not going to be happy about their loss to the Clippers. Orlando's got to kind of put their foot down, have that consistent and constant drumbeat that makes them a successful team. And that's going to be a big part of this game. Should be a good one. I do expect the Magic to win this game. I would take the Magic to win, but we will see what happens because you just never know this early in the season what's going to happen and who's playing well and who's not. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them based on the podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device. For latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub. That's patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. I have a free video up right now of my favorite plays from the Magic's win over the Houston Rockets. I break down a lot of the stuff I was talking about with Paolo, how he attracted attention and made the most of it. Check that out as well if you want to add that to your cycle. I'm hoping to do more of those kinds of videos throughout the season. Probably not going to have a favorite plays after Friday's game just because of my schedule on Saturday. But I'll be doing a lot more videos like that as well. So definitely check out that video today. Also, for Friday's game against the Portland Trail Blazers, I will be hopping on, and I want to make sure I get the app name right, on the PSF app. Download the PSF app off your wherever you get your apps. Go to the Magic chat room at 9:45 p.m. Eastern time. I will be hosting a kind of Manning cast style watch along. I'll be commenting and talking about the game. You get to essentially watch the game with me. I'll monitor the chat, answer questions. Check it out today. PSF is the name of the app. It's Pro Sports Fans. If you search PSF, you should find it on your app store. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Ross from Mike. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.